to the Inspiring Good podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the Community Foundation of Elkhart County, which serves a vibrant community in northern Indiana known for its generosity and strong network of nonprofit organizations. I'm Marshall King, who's hosting this podcast with Kevin Deary, a former nonprofit CEO who now coaches others. Our guest today is Kris Weimer, who leads Startup Moxie Elkhart County, where she helps high school students discover their potential as innovators and leaders. Her passion for entrepreneurship and education and community makes her a trusted guide for the next generation of changemakers in Elkhart County. Welcome, Kris.
Thank you, Marshall. Thanks for having me here.
Good morning, Kris. It's so good to have you. I had the privilege of sitting in on your class last week and having a chance to talk to your students, and I was very impressed.
Well, thank you.
The things that I was impressed with, first of all, is they all came in, they all shook my hand, they looked me in the eye. I thought I was talking to young college or professionals like you would see it at the Chamber of Commerce. And I was very impressed that these are high school kids. So you've done a really good job of preparing them for the business world because they all are entrepreneurs in at least in spirit, and they're learning how to do this. But I was super impressed with that. The level of the quality of their questions was outstanding. Their listening skills, paying attention, no one on their phones. I mean, that's I don't know why that should be the standard.
It should be. And, that is what I hope by the end of the school year, that they are all comfortable walking in and shaking someone's hand and asking questions that are intelligent questions and really just taking in and observing and learning from everyone around them.
Mr. Bocanegro?
Yes.
Was I saying that right?
Yep.
I go to church with him.
Oh, you go to church?
So he came running up to me at church on Sunday to tell me how much he enjoyed my visit and to thank me on behalf of the class again. And I was just blown away again by
That's awesome.
This level of professionalism from, are they juniors and seniors?
They're juniors and seniors, and they really do appreciate every single person that's willing to take time out to meet them. And they feel like everyone that they get to meet throughout the year is a superstar, that they're just, in awe of every person that they've met.
So for folks who aren't familiar with Startup Moxie, explain how the program's structured and how it's different. I mean, how the day starts differently for these students.
Yeah, so students that are in Startup Moxie, they actually apply for the program during the spring or summer months, and I interview each student that's interested in participating because I want to make sure they understand that they're committing to 90 minutes every school day for the entire school year, and that they understand they are out in the community. The program is focused on learning through immersion, and so instead of sitting in a classroom and hearing about entrepreneurship or business topics, they are out meeting people who have started businesses and observing the businesses, all the different industries in our community. And so I want to make sure they really understand what they're getting into. Some of the students have taken all the business classes at their high school and know for sure they are on the business track. Others are just creative kids that know they don't want to go to college and they want to do something on their own when they are done with high school. And so they recognize that this sets them up for success with the networking that they are able to do during the program, as well as, just those soft skills of going out and meeting people every day and having to, represent Startup Moxie with whatever we're doing.
So you're a teacher by education and by background.
Yes.
And especially music.
Yes,
right?
I taught music for 19 years.
And then ended up being a principal here in Elkhart of a school.
I did.
And you find yourself now leading this incredible entrepreneurial program. Tell me about that journey.
Yeah, so I taught music for 19 years, primarily elementary. And during that time, I saw the need for leadership within the school community. And so I decided I was going to step up and take on that challenge. So yeah, I, assisted and then ran a school through COVID years. And during one of those years, my own son participated in Startup Moxie. I didn't know much about the program at that time other than a friend of mine was on the board and said, hey, this is a great program. He should really consider this. So he participated in the program his senior year, and it wasn't until the pitch competition that we do each year that I got to see him in action and, watch him present the business idea he had developed throughout the year, and saw the amazing potential and the amazing learning that was happening with the program. And so it was at that time I thought, wow, this could do big things for so many kids in our community, whether they were college bound or whether they were ready to, jump into the workforce or start their own business. It had a lot of potential. And so shortly after that, one of the board members came to me and actually said, we would like for you to take over as the director of this program. That was kind of a surprise because that was not, on my path of what I thought I was going to be doing next in my life. But seeing how it impacted Ben, my son, made me really want to get involved and provide that opportunity to other students because, I really love working with the students that maybe others have, deemed as, squirrely or, not academic enough. And sometimes those students that aren't the most academic are the ones that are the most creative and have so much potential in them if they're not, stuck in a classroom taking tests and being told there's a right and wrong answer. Because in Startup Moxie, there's not a right or wrong answer. It's all about feel it out, figure out, is this something that's going to work or not?
I have 5 children. My wife and I share 5 children. And one of my children, who's now 37, he was a daydreamer. Mm-hmm. And I remember the teacher telling me, well, your son just daydreams in class all the time, and he struggles staying focused. And I said to him, I said to her, did you ever ask him what he's dreaming about? Like why he's daydreaming? And it's because he himself, he wasn't going to be an academic or college bound, but he had that spirit of Startup Moxie in him before I know anybody had ever heard of that. And today he's an entrepreneur because that's what he was dreaming about.
Yeah.
And so I think that is such a great point that he wanted to control his destiny. He didn't want to follow the path that everybody else was on. And he wasn't doing it consciously. He was doing it subconsciously. And here he is as an adult, as a successful entrepreneur, living the best life he can be. And often I look at him and I say, I'm so proud of him because he knew who he was. I get the feeling from Startup Moxie that kids are finding themselves. And I love how you case that as they're searching. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, they do. Students today have so much pressure to know what they want to do after high school, which is crazy because I don't think any of us are on the path that we thought we would be on when we were in high school. And so giving them the opportunity to explore the community, see all the different jobs, see all the different industries, talk to people about, what their passions were or what they're doing and how it relates to their life is huge. And when I'm sitting down and interviewing students, I'm looking for that spark that I see in some of them, the creativity that not all of them that come into the program have the creativity. Some of them are the worker bees. Personally, I'm more of the worker bee, and my husband is the creative one that's constantly coming up with ideas. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, how can I help him take that creative idea he has and maybe turn it into some sort of business. And, I saw that with my son. He had that passion for cars. And so that was, the direction he ended up going after Startup Moxie to, be able to work on cars every single day. And he, his business has bloomed thanks to the people in the community that poured into him and have mentored him and have supported him as on his journey.
Do you find that some of the principles you've learned in Startup Moxie with entrepreneurship has helped your husband with his business?
Absolutely. Yes, both with his business and, with our son, we're constantly, just talking about his business and helping him work through, some of the challenges he might have with employees and things like that, as well as being able to help him just from, people that I've met and point him directions to help guide his journey.
So this program started in St. Joe County and took root in Elkhart County with the opportunity for Elkhart County students to engage it. But entrepreneurship in Elkhart County and in the South Bend Elkhart region as a whole, but entrepreneurship in Elkhart County is this
It's huge.
It's like a powerful strain of, something that can just grow and grow and grow. So what's that? That's got to be really cool to be part of as you're trying to do this education with these students. What's the connection between Elkhart County entrepreneurship and Startup Moxie?
Yeah, so the program did start over in St. Joe County about 10 years ago. About 5 years in, there were a couple people from Elkhart County that were participating and helping the class over there. And so they said, we really have the entrepreneurs here in Elkhart County. We need to get this program over here. And so it's launched right around COVID time, which wasn't the best time for, businesses inviting young students in to see them. So, it took a little while to get the ball rolling, but since I took over 4 years ago, I am blown away by the business owners and just the people in our community that support these students and want to see them do well and want to be involved and want to help teach them through that immersive experience. Students being able to see so many different things that are made and different services that we provide here in Elkhart County that I don't believe can be found in a lot of other communities around the world. And every time I contact a business and explain the program and ask if, they could somehow connect with the program, the answer is absolutely yes, every single time.
One of the things that I was touched by with your class is it's a very diverse class.
It is.
So you have boys and girls, you have different backgrounds, different ethnic backgrounds, and they all seem to be highly focused on whatever their dream and their passion is. So you shared your story about Ben, your son,
Yes.
and he's really blessed because he had parents who supported his dream and his vision, whatever his path was, and you still do today. But do you have another story of a student who maybe didn't have parents that had their back as they had this dream and maybe were insisting that they go into academics, or maybe they just didn't have any background themselves, or maybe it's a single parent? But do you have any stories about that?
Oh, I have. Yeah, I have quite a few students who, come from single family households that, have not had a lot of experience other than maybe, working in one of the manufacturing plants in our area, that come into the program. And, in addition to being the director of the program and the facilitator of the class, I kind of take on the role of being mama bear for all of them, to help them see that, they are cared for and there's somebody that has their back. I have a group of students right now that have just recently started a nonprofit. The students were in the program last year, and even though they're no longer in the program, they're still texting me regularly, asking me for, suggestions or networking, people for them to connect with, or, how do I file this paperwork or do this other thing? And so, I feel like when they join the class, they are in it. They're part of Startup Moxie forever. And no matter what their background is, they know that I have their back and I'm going to be there to support them, as well as the board, because, I tell them, when you're a part of this program, the Moxie board is going to be there to support you no matter, if it's tomorrow, if it's a year from now, if it's 10 years from now. Being part of this is kind of a special thing, and they have a whole another family.
So I'm glad you brought up the board. So you come from academia yourself.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden you jump into the nonprofit landscape. And it's a little different.
It is very different.
And you had to make some adjustments. And talk about entrepreneurial, you became an entrepreneurial not-for-profit CEO that had to figure out, how do I work for a board? How do I work the board? How do I raise the money to support this amazing program? So tell me about that journey, what some of the lessons you've learned.
Yeah, before starting as the director for Startup Moxie, my only experience was with a parent-teacher organization, which is a completely different, feel than working with a board of directors. So, yeah, stepping into the role and navigating, how do I work with the board, and what times do I work for the board, or what times do I need to take the role, the leadership role, was challenging, very challenging at the beginning. But, especially thanks to some of the offerings here at the Community Foundation, that's helped me better understand and learn how to navigate everything. And, work with my board members that, they all have huge hearts and want to be super involved, but sometimes they don't know what to do, how to help. So helping to better understand how to help them help me has been great.
It's a process, isn't it?
It definitely is. And it's a constantly evolving process.
And I took the opportunity to check out your website, and I looked at your roster of board members, who I know most of them. And you definitely have some tigers by the tail, because they're some of the sharpest entrepreneurial, passionate people in the county. And I am sure they are driven by wanting to help the next generation of entrepreneurs. How do you keep all those kittens in a box and focused?
Sometimes it can be challenging because I've got a lot of people on the board that have great ideas. But, it is really getting to know each board member and understanding their personalities and understanding their strengths and, the areas that they can best assist, so that I can help, wrangle everyone in and we can, stay focused on what the goal is with the students. But, everyone that is involved in Startup Moxie, they're there because they want to see these students succeed. That, they want to help grow the next, group of entrepreneurs in our community, because you see over and over all the people that have an idea that, launch an amazing business just because they saw some need or some problem that needed addressed here in Elkhart County, and they took the leap and did it.
I had a chance to share my own story, because at a young age, at 16 years old, I launched my own business. I shared that I stole it from U-Haul.
Yes.
And I made it I-Haul was the name of my company. I was a company of one with a little beat-up pickup truck. And I was thinking, today, kids have websites and social media and technology and cell phones. And I just went door to door, and I dropped off pieces of paper with people and put it in their mailbox and said, if you have things that need to be hauled away from your attic or your basement or whatever, this is what I do and this is how I charge. And it's what I did. So I hauled hot water heaters or junk from the garage or whatever they needed to haul to the dump, or brush, whatever they needed. But it was all word of mouth.
Yeah.
Which then spread with somebody says, hey, I know somebody, but the only contact they could have was in my home phone, which I rarely was home. So there was no cell phones. But today, how do kids get their arms around the offerings that they have today with technology?
Well, you would think technology would play a huge part in them starting businesses and launching it. And I think something they always learn throughout the school year is really it is still the networking and the word of mouth, no matter what it is. We talk about them coming up with business ideas, that's something they could launch in the next 2 weeks with just the resources they currently have. What could they, what version of their business that they're thinking of could they start right away? And it always boils down to word of mouth and sharing out. Now, sometimes that is through social media now, but still it is just talking about their interests and their businesses.
So with that, they have to come up with a business plan. They have to come up with an idea. And sometimes it's a service business like Kevin described. Sometimes it's
sometimes a product that they design.
Talk about some of the different cool things you've seen over the last handful of years that students have done as part of their business projects.
Yeah, there's a lot of students that want to do something service related to improve other people's lives. So I had a student a couple years ago that had a kind of a handyman service, but it was focused on retirement communities to help with those little tasks that aren't necessarily, part of the package that if someone receives, like if they're living at Greencroft, to help just, senior citizens with things like that. I had some young ladies that developed a hair product so that they would spray it on their hair before they went swimming so their hair didn't turn green. So going through that process and then figuring out, all the different components and, regulations and things like that was interesting for them. There is a young lady that is in our community that started a service organization to help find pet sitting and pet care while family members are going through medical medical procedures and things like that, cancer treatments, that she, had the idea before she was in Startup Moxie, continued to develop it during Startup Moxie. And then a couple years after graduating from the program, now has really launched it and is running her What About Willis business that she has. So, those are just a few of them. There's just so many, because students in Startup Moxie Elkhart County are all required to come up with a business idea. Some actually launch and are in revenue. Others, it's just the idea, but they have to work through that entire process of, considering all of the different components that you have to think about when you're getting ready to start a business. And they all do have to pitch at the end of the year to the board of directors, Shark Tank style. So every one of them has to get up there and do a presentation, whether it's in a group or whether it's on their own. They are all required to do that. It's kind of their final exam, which, also sets them up for life, just having to do that presentation. Because for most of them, that is not a comfortable thing when they're starting the school year. But by the end of the year, I'm proud of them because they step it up and do really well.
They would much rather do their work than have to talk about it or present to particularly investors or banks.
And it's scary not knowing what kind of questions you're going to be asked or if you're going to have an answer to that question.
If it makes them feel any better, I don't care how old you are, everybody gets nervous when you're presenting your business plan to a potential investor. So that's and as you have found as a CEO of Startup Moxie, you have to write for grants and you have to present.
Yes, I do. I have, this program is a nonprofit. And so I have to write grants and I have to, ask for donations in order to be able to provide this to students free of cost, because it does not cost anything for a student to be in the program.
That was my question.
The state of Indiana offers career and technical education funds for schools that offer programs like this or something outside of just the normal math and language arts and things like that. And so I do have to do a lot of grant writing and presentations and, have a lot of conversations with business owners to explain the program and help them understand why it's so important we have this.
Did you ever think that when you were a principal of school or a music teacher for 19 years that you'd be doing this?
No. Absolutely. Nope. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I would be doing this. But, parts of my job that I did as a music teacher and as a principal have definitely helped set me up for success with this.
I know that when you left Elkhart Schools, they were kind of heartbroken because they really thought very highly of you. They understood it, and they were glad that you were staying inside with the community. And as you followed your own entrepreneurial dream, but it's been so successful. Goshen has now asked and has a class.
Yes, they do. Yes, it's been nice because I have the partnerships with all the school corporations that when I go to talk to a superintendent or a principal or counselors, I can talk school. I understand the world of school. And so I can explain how, this benefits the students and how it fits into their graduation requirements and things like that. And Jim Du Bois, superintendent down at Goshen, came to me and said we would love to have our own satellite location down here because they recognized they had a lot of students who deserved to be in the program but didn't have the transportation necessary, because we do meet in businesses every single day. There are some students that don't drive themselves or don't have a family member able to help transport them. So I partnered with Goshen to see if we could, we're trying this out to see kind of a prototype this year. They have a group of 21 students that they come to school like a usual day, but they meet in a slightly different career technical education type setting. And then they get to tour businesses and things down in Goshen, but it's just a group of Goshen students, as opposed to my group that I have students from Concord and Elkhart, Goshen, Jimtown, not Jimtown this year, Northridge, Northwood, Fairfield. So I have students from all over the county that come together all at the same time.
And they arrive at 7 a.m. Like
The students are ready to go at 7:30, and they're with me from 7:30 to 9. But yes, oftentimes they're leaving their house before 7 in order to get to this program.
because they're coming in the dark, in the fog. I mean, they're coming. And what's so impressive to me is I know that schools wrestle with tardies and absences. Your kids were right on time, and they were ready to go, keeping notes. And for me to have students not on their phones or daydreaming or talking amongst themselves about other things, but your students were really locked in, and that's a credit to you as their teacher, setting the expectation. What an advantage to be a teacher who had to have that
definitely
background.
helped. Yeah, setting those expectations and requirements, but at the same time, helping students understand who they're going to meet, what they could be learning from each of these people, whether or not it's, someone who's working in an area that they could see themselves going into, or maybe, at first they don't understand the connection between how, the speaker could impact them. There's a high bar set for them, and they rise to the challenge.
Yeah, it was a remarkable difference to see your class. So please pass that on to them.
I will let them know that.
Because I guess maybe I've kind of been numbed to a lower bar, and then all of a sudden to see these students be so on top of everything and asking really good questions, and even the shy ones were asking really good questions. So they're very perceptive, and I think they're reflecting your leadership skills, your communication skills. So you should take a lot of credit for that. 10 years from now, what's Startup Moxie going to look like?
Ooh, 10 years from now, I hope it has grown so that we have multiple satellite locations. I would love to have one cohort that does bring students together from all the different schools, that continues to do that, because there's something to be said for when you get outside your school building and you're working with students that you've never met before, and so you can kind of reinvent yourself a little bit. A lot of students do that in college, but they can do that in Startup Moxie because there's not that preconceived idea of who they are. So, I think having a cohort of students from all over, but in addition, I would love to see cohorts in each of the schools, because this does check the box for new graduation requirements for work-based learning and things like that. And with this program that, provides 90 minutes every day of your, in the community and learning about the different businesses and leaders and things like that. So I would love to see it move to that point where we're able to have that cohort in each school, because that would definitely help with the transportation issue for students that currently can't participate.
Which means you'll have a choice to leave the classroom and become more of an administrator.
And that would be really hard because, as much as I enjoy everything on the back end and, checking off all the to-do list, I love working with high school students 90 minutes every day. I went from working with little kids for years and years to not being sure what I was going to think about working with high schoolers every day. And working with, community members that I thought, are they going to invite, am I going to be able to fill 180 days worth of tours and businesses? And every year I get to the end of the year and I'm sad of all the businesses that we didn't get to connect with because there's so many in this community. But I do love the high school students there. It's fun working with students that are mature enough that you can joke around with them a little bit, but also say, okay, cut it out and be serious now. And they step up and do that.
So somebody who is listening to this podcast today may say, that is really interesting. How can I help, or how can I get in contact with you? Could you maybe fill in the blanks for that?
Yeah, they can contact me directly through my email, or they can even contact the Elkhart Chamber of Commerce. I work in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce, and my office is within that building. So they're, an easy way to get a hold of me. But yeah, my email and my work cell phone are great ways to reach out, or through the website, there's a place you can, connect with me. And whether that's, speaking to the class or providing a tour or coming in once a month. When the students really have landed on a business idea, we do class coaching days where I invite community members in to sit down at a table with the students, kind of like speed dating, but the students just share out their business idea, and a group of 20 to 40 adults give their opinion and their feedback and their suggestions for the students to really, figure out if the idea they're thinking of is something that other people want, or if it's, just something that the student thinks is going to be.
I think we just dated ourselves with speed dating, because today it would be Match.com or
Yes.
something else. But that was a business idea that somebody had and has done really well. And so has Match.com, and all the things that have gone online now that have come from entrepreneurial thoughts meeting needs.
Yep. It's all about, finding that problem and finding a solution to it. What's a problem to a customer, and how do I take care of that?
I'm going to ask a more modern question. As Kevin has emphasized, your students have the soft skills and the professionalism that is so remarkable. One of the things that always strikes me when I meet these Startup Moxie kids is they look you in the eye.
Yes.
Like their heads are up and they're looking you in the eye. And it's almost like in modern culture, that's almost alarming, because we don't do that as much as we used to.
They are not comfortable doing.
But when I've encountered them, they're looking you in the eye. They're referring to you as Mr. Deary or Mr. King. And like it is that simple education that you provide is very cool to encounter. I'm curious how you're seeing artificial intelligence or AI being used in Startup Moxie. I mean, I'm guessing that the rules are there's a little more welcoming notion of that than there might be in some conventional classroom settings.
Yes. Actually, we did lessons the last couple weeks. We've done quite a few lessons on AI, because I feel like students need to be set up to understand how to use AI appropriately, and those times that it is a time saver for you and it's not cheating. I think schools have been very leery of AI because, they think, a kid's just going to complete their homework using this and not use their own brain. But, I had some guest speakers come in the past few weeks talking about AI being like an extra robotic arm. It doesn't replace your brain. You have to, you have to give it the prompts, and you have to tell AI what you're wanting it to do with your own thoughts. And it just helps sometimes make it sound better. Or, we spent some time and had AI create a website for someone, was done in a couple minutes. And, just to show students, like, you don't have to get hooked up on those, components of starting a business that you are not familiar with. There are tools out there that can help you. So, I think that is going to be very helpful for them after graduation with whatever they do. Having those kind of skills, whether or not they decide they want to start a business or they decide that's absolutely not for me, that's not my goal of the program. Really, it's to help develop these students into members of our community that we want to stay here or come back here if they're going away to school. And then, just really help develop our community even further.
Well, my last question and observation is we're so glad that I'm sorry that the school's lost a high-quality principal, but I'm so grateful to have you on the non-for-profit side and doing this important work, which is also still tied heavily to schools.
Absolutely.
But also that you have found your entrepreneurial spirit and your focus for your next path, and that we're brave enough to make that leap.
Yeah.
That
making a change is scary.
It's very scary. Yeah. I'm sure that was a process for you to think about, talk to your husband about, and say,
definitely,
boy, this is like stepping off into to the abyss.
Yeah.
Because
you're in the world of education, most of the time, if you go into education, that's what you do. My parents were both educators. They spent their entire career with, the public school system. And so to say, I'm going to step away from all of this and do something very different, there were some people that thought I was pretty crazy, but every day I love what I'm doing. I love the impact I have on the students.
How many times were entrepreneurs told they were crazy?
all the time. That's what the students hear every time they talk to somebody, someone saying that's a crazy idea or that can't be done. And, that's part of what this program is breaking that cycle of the right and wrong answers or no, you can't. And students, I think gain a lot of confidence of, hey, I can make this happen. Because I know other people that have done that. So I have people to lean on.
I think having, you sit on one of our CEO roundtables with your peers and other nonprofits, and you're a forever student. You're always learning. You're always listening. You're an outstanding communicator. You lead by example, and you can see that through the reflection of the eyes of your students, not only how they look at you, but how they follow you. Your example, your voice, your faith in them. And I think our community is so fortunate to have you leading our Startup Moxie program. So I just wanted to say thank you to that.
Thank you.
Kris, we always wrap up by asking, what gives you hope?
What gives me hope is seeing the spark in students, especially those students that come into the program who might be those that are, have been challenging at their school, or that maybe, they have to get a letter of recommendation, and I check references, and sometimes some of the students, it's questionable. The schools aren't quite sure about them, but especially seeing those students and how they grow and how they reach back out to me after the program and say, oh my gosh, Kris, there's no way I would have been able to, present this or be a part of that if it wasn't for those skills I learned in Startup Moxie. So seeing the businesses that are being developed, but just seeing the students that are being developed into amazing adults gives me hope for the future.
This show is a production of the Community Foundation of Elkhart County. It is powered by equipment from Sweetwater and recorded at the Community Foundation's offices in Elkhart's River District. Editing is done by the award-winning communication students at Goshen College, home of one of the best college radio stations in the nation. Listen to Globe Radio at 91.1 FM. Music is provided by Sensational Sounds. Learn more about the Community Foundation of Elkhart County at inspiringgood.org. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Thanks for listening. We hope you're inspired and inspire good in your community.